What's going on, gamers? We got an interesting comment here about Jim Ryan, or what he said a while ago too, which kind of reflects upon backwards compatibility support going back farther to PS2 and PS1 games, hell, even PS3. And I think he was the guy that if it wasn't for him, we would have probably had a PS3 backwards compatibility system, maybe even back to 2 and 1. But because of his ideology at the beginning of the PS5 generation, that did not happen. We can see this right here on the drama that got released early this morning about Shuhei Yoshida being fired from him. Crazy stuff, right? Erratic says, I can't believe the higher-ups at Sony thought, which is why there's new ones now, Hiroki Totoki, Hideaki Nishino, thought Jim Ryan was the guy to replace Shuhei Yoshida. Yeah, think about that. That that shouldn't have been no Japanese decision. When he was out there talking about PlayStation history like this. And this is where things get interesting. Like, comment, subscribe, let me know what you guys think about this. He says, when Weave, who's that? I don't think Shuei would think this, dabbled with backwards compatibility, I can say it is one of those features that is much requested, but not actually used much, said Ryan. That doesn't matter. Still having it there is basically taking care of everything. If people don't care about it, they're just going to ignore it. But having it there for other people, it's just a nice feature to have. That's one thing Microsoft did good with Xbox. But did that really move consoles like that? Not necessarily, because take a look at it. But for PlayStation, they have a deeper history and older catalog. And when you think about the compatibility of that too with a handheld and everything else, it's a pretty nice thing to have. When you look on PC, a lot of people play a lot of old games. They don't care about some of this new stuff. Definitely on Steam, people are always playing these older games. So it just depends, because there's a whole retro community out there as well too that likes to play older games, and they'll be sitting there in the retro worlds all day. You got people that if their kid is growing up in the gaming world, they'll probably start them off with an older console to get them to kind of like grow up and kind of get that older experience, then kind of migrate to this right now. I've seen people do it. So that's why I feel like when you're talking about situations like this, you also have to still be open to the communities that still want that. It just benefits you because you have more diversity in what you're supporting. So then he says that, and I was at a Gran Turismo event recently where they had, zoom in on this, where they had PS1, PS2, PS3, and PlayStation 4 games. He says, and the PS1 and the PS2 games, they looked ancient. Like, why would anybody play this? So basically he's saying because those games are outdated from a technological perspective, why would anybody be interested in it? Like, he's speaking for everyone. That's where he was wrong. That's a wrong statement to have. If you had a backwards compatibility support system for PS1 and PS2 games, people are going to play them. If that wasn't the case, why does Sony have the premium option to play PlayStation 1 games and legacy PlayStation titles, right? That's in there because it's like, no, there's a lot of people that subscribe to premium. And there's a lot of communities out there and a lot of people in general that want to have an older catalog of games and people who never got to play them. They might want that organic experience and the remade, remastered experience, because that's just the way certain people work. There's, life is just infinite like that, so you shouldn't be stuck on one spectrum. And this is a mistake that Jim Ryan actually made. He was not fit to be in that leader position like that. He was fit to do what he did best. He did a really good job getting PlayStations to sell in Europe and expanding that out. But him getting at the helm, I don't think so. This comment right here tells you a lot. So when you really think about how Sony could have invested into the PS3 backwards compatibility system and had it be like kind of like maxed out with backwards compatibility support, like you have with PS5 maxing out the image quality of PS4 games, and if it was uncapped, get it to 60 frames per second for games that didn't have that. That would have been nice. I think a lot of people would have liked that or have some toggle for it or something. But no, he didn't really care about that. But is that really what moved PlayStation consoles? No, but is it a nice feature that would have been nice to have? Sure, because they're still going to sell their 100 million. So that's the thing. I've talked about this before. But still having that option there just solidifies that you're covering all bases. But he didn't want to do that. So going down some of these comments, you're going to see a mixed things going on here too. Henry says graphics don't matter. Everything is secondary to gameplay. That's very true. That's why you see a lot of people with... You know what I mean? Higher end PC rigs too, playing these older games. It's like you don't even need that to max that out. It's very true. If the gameplay sucks, everything else can't save it. Yeah, I mean, that's like you coming in and giving me a sugar-coated present. It looks nice because the presentation is nice, but I open it and it's like womp womp, or there's poison in there, or it's just mediocre. And that means that it's not deep. It's just shallow. You're just surfacing me with the glow. We've seen a lot of live service games do this, right? Right. And they have ugly art too, though. You know what I mean? But even say you have nice art and a nice surface, that can only get you so far because if you're not going to keep me engaged, I'm just going to go to something else. And you'll see people playing older games like World of Warcraft still, League of Legends, Minecraft, and they're still playing them because of what he said. They have that great formula. We see that with Roblox taking over. They definitely don't have the best graphics, but that's not really what makes a good video game. Now, if everything else is really good and you're adding a better engine and overhauling it and making it look way better, and you already love what you're doing, that's a nice bonus. But if it's only just coding, then yeah, that's not going to get too far. So Henry has a really good comment with that. And you see 82 people came and agree with that because it's very true. This is what happened with this generation when people were chasing stuff like Unreal Engine 5. They didn't even do that right. Worrying about technology, all these details, overspending budgets, but you should have focused on what mattered the most. This is a good thing that I like about Japan is that they reuse assets and it saves them money, but it's still really good. Like the Yakuza team, Go To Studio. I love those guys. Were you Go To Studio, whatever their name is? They're amazing. They used to be ran by Nagoshi. Yo, it sucks what happened with him when he went over to China. He got screwed over. Then before that, Yu Suzuki was there who made the Shenmue series. But those guys, they have made so many games, but they reuse their assets and then they fine-tune their engine and make it better and better. And those games do really good and they're excellent and they're amazing. They always score well. And that's another thing where it's like, you're going to get that, but remember what's the most important thing. Gameplay for sure. Direction, story, all that type of stuff, not graphics. That's the final presentation. This guy says yes, and made PlayStation the most money more than every other PlayStation gen combined, and got them through the COVID years and solving the manufacturing and shipment issues, which was a constant topic and priority during investor calls. During his time, Sony market value went up. He did a good job at that, yes, but he was not good when it came to first party, choosing live service. There's things that he was good at that he should have stayed there. That was his field. He was really good with that. But he didn't do that alone, though. Sean Layden did a lot of work. Shuhei Yoshida did a lot of work, and so did a lot of other people. It wasn't just him. He took care of Europe in a really good state for sure. That's why I said Jim Ryan did a good job with that. But the mistakes that he made were monumental. He drove it off a cliff. And so he down-metric things. And then you got some people saying this, how most modern gamers think, including me. I wouldn't play a PS2, PS1 game unless it was a remake. They are ancient. And that's how he feels. But he said he's a modern gamer in that perspective. But I know modern gamers are in the retro worlds. So no. Fired one of the last guys who cared, and now here we are. Live service, sell them new ideas, cancel games, the Bungie Firewalk Haven acquisition, closed studios, an entire generation wasted for Naughty Dog and Ben F. My point exactly, like I said, the damage that he did, though, it's like you did all that, but then you almost took all that and just threw it all off a cliff. Gas rushing, nitro, right? Yeah, talk about a gas rush the wrong way, right? Need for Speed, Fast and Furious style. That's what he did. It's like, bro, no, man. And then you fired Shuhei. Like, that was terrible. And then drove away Sean Layden. It's like, no, these were the guys that made PlayStation for the longest. How are you going to do all that because you want to do things? Oh, he kind of lost his way, like, big time. This guy says, but I'm going to be honest. PS1 and PS2 games haven't aged well. Was playing Tomb Raider 1 recently, and I just couldn't. If he was wrong, we wouldn't be begging for an Uncharted 1 remake. But Uncharted 1 holds up very well. You got the collection. And like I said, that's not really dated like that. Those are still really good games. It just depends on the gamer. I tell you, I know people can go play older games. They have no problem with that. But I get what he's saying. Like if you're trying to cater to the visual aestheticism of a modern gamer that is used to seeing things, that think in that power-headed sense, that really want things to look like that. Yeah, there's a big thing for that in the modern world. But then there's also other communities too that are not like that. Japan is the same way. People who play Nintendo games all day are not like that. And they have a huge community. People who play mobile games, though, that look good. They look good too, but it just depends. As I said, it's good to have it there because then there's no complaining. And then you could just ignore it if you don't care. But for the people who are going to be complaining, you took care of them. You can't really beat that. Just do it. Herman Hill's era will continue to be depressing. PlayStation needs more people like Shuhei Yoshida. I agree. He was great. I love them. Man, I hope Jen gets to boot and they bring back Shuhei. You mean he's been gone, bro? I see this quite a lot, and I think his sense of humor just didn't come across well. He was just joking that the old Gran Turismo games look ancient compared to the new ones. I don't think he actually hated them like some people think. They said Jim was really a terrible choice for the head of PlayStation. My God, what a dip Shit, he was. Yeah, I'm gonna have to agree with that. 100%. What do you guys think about this comment that Jim Ryan made? Do you think that Sony should have invested into the PS3 backwards compatibility? I think they should have at least went to that. Well, how do you feel what he said about PS1 and PS2 games? Even if you do max them out, it's not going to look that much better, right? That's of course. But like I said, they're under premium. They have them there. So it's there. You just have to, pay for premium. But yeah, I think that if premium was unattractive, it wouldn't have such a high yield, and it does. A lot of people are sub to it. Me, I never go to it because I'm not interested. I go for extra when I want to play those games, and I only grab plus if I feel like the value of the games you're putting there are really good. Like when I saw Alan Wake 2, I was like, instant, right? Though that game's worth owning. So yeah, once again, guys, let me know what you think. Leave a comment down below. Another topic to cover today when it comes to Jim Ryan. Looks like he's in the news again in the gaming media or just in general. Later, y'all. Peace out. Stay cool.